Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. The government of India has announced a massive economic relief package of 1.7 lakh crore rupees to support the poorest and the vulnerable citizens and help them overcome the economic impact of the COVID-19 lockdown. This relief package has been announced as a part of the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana. But before we look at the features of this scheme, first let us understand why the government should be extending economic support to the vulnerable sections during this period of lockdown. See, we have two articles on page number 1 and page number 2, which helps us understand the enormous suffering being faced by the poor and the vulnerable sections due to the ongoing lockdown. Vulnerable sections such as migrant workers, daily wage earners, poor women, old age people, the disabled, widows, and small business owners. They have been severely affected by the lockdown because a majority of them work in the informal sector, and the imposition of a total lockdown has resulted in the loss of livelihood to these vulnerable sections. Amongst the vulnerable sections, the biggest impact is being borne by migrant workers, who are generally daily wage earners. Stories have emerged from across the country highlighting the loss of livelihood of migrant workers and how they have been forced to abandon cities and migrate back to rural areas on foot due to the non-availability of means of transportation. This plight of migrant workers highlights India's economic weakness and the lack of social infrastructure in the Indian society. Millions of migrant workers from across the country have been forced to abandon cities because the loss of their daily income has made it impossible for them to access basic necessities such as shelter, food, etc. The biggest tragedy of this ongoing reverse migration is that the children of migrant workers and even pregnant and lactating women have been denied the benefits of midday meals. This is going to affect the nutritional status of children and women, and this is going to lead to their starvation and malnutrition. So in order to avert this humanitarian crisis, the government of India has announced a massive economic relief package known as the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana in order to support the poor and the vulnerable sections of the society. This scheme, which is valued at around 1.7 lakh crore rupees, provides for wide coverage to include women, construction workers, small companies, land-owning farmers, Manrega workers in the rural areas, old age people, disabled, widows, etc. This scheme includes two main components. One, it provides for free food in order to meet the nutritional requirements of the vulnerable sections. And two, it provides for cash transfers in order to supplement their loss of livelihood. See, currently, under the National Food Security Act, millions of poor people are being provided with 5 kg of subsidized food grain through the PDS system. The government of India has announced that in addition to this existing provision, 5 kg of additional food grains and 1 kg of pulses would be provided for free. This free supply of food grains would be provided over the next 3 months in order to help the poor and the vulnerable sections meet their nutritional requirements as India tackles the COVID-19 pandemic. Then under the cash transfer scheme, senior citizens who are drawing a pension, the disabled and widows who belong to the poor category, they would be provided with 1,000 rupees in 2 installments over the next 3 months. This cash transfer scheme is expected to benefit around 3 crore people. Then around 20 crore women who belong to the poor category will receive 500 rupees provided if they have a Jan Dhan account. Then in order to supplement rural income, the government of India has announced an increase in Manrega wages by 20 rupees per day. This increase is expected to benefit around 13.6 crore families in the rural areas, and according to the government of India, this should roughly translate to an additional income of around 2,000 rupees per worker. Then in order to support all land-owning farmers, the government has announced a few changes to the PM Kisan scheme. Here, I would like to issue a correction with regard to our yesterday's discussion on the PM Kisan scheme. Yesterday, I had incorrectly mentioned that the PM Kisan scheme is applicable only for small and marginal farmers. However, this is incorrect and we regret the error. So please note that when the PM Kisan scheme was launched, it was initially applicable only to small and marginal farmers. But later, the scheme has been extended to cover all eligible farmers. Under this scheme, the government provides a financial incentive in 3 installments to support landowning farmers. So in order to help these farmers overcome the impact of the lockdown, the government has announced to release the first installment of 2000 rupees in April itself. Then in order to support the owners of small companies and its employees, the government has announced changes to the EPF scheme or the Employee Provident Fund scheme. In small companies which have less than 100 employees, and if 90% of those employees are earning less than 15,000 rupees per month, then the government would be paying the EPF contribution of both the employer and the employee for the next 3 months. So this decision is expected to benefit around 4 lakh small businesses and around 80 lakh employees. Then to support construction workers, the central government has directed the states to make use of the fund that is available with the Building and Construction Workers Welfare Board. This welfare fund, managed by the Construction Workers Welfare Board, has collected around 31,000 crore rupees over the years and it remains unutilized. So the centre has directed the state governments to distribute this fund to around 3.5 crore construction workers who have registered with the welfare board. Then in order to support women self-help groups under the National Rural Livelihood Mission and enable them to create livelihood opportunities, the government has doubled the provision of collateral-free loans to 20 lakh rupees. Then apart from these measures, the government of India has announced an insurance scheme of 50 lakh rupees for healthcare workers who are at the forefront of India's fight against COVID-19. This insurance scheme will be provided over the next 3 months and it is expected to benefit around 22 lakh healthcare workers, including doctors, nurses, paramedics, ASHA activists and medical sanitary workers. Now let us look at an article on page number 8 and an editorial on page number 6, which provides for a critical evaluation of the economic relief package. Economic experts and social scientists have provided a mixed review of this economic relief package. They have praised the government of India for coming out with such a massive relief package in order to help the country to overcome the economic impact of the lockdown. They have appreciated a number of measures such as the provision of insurance coverage for healthcare workers, the provision of free food grains and pulses in order to meet the nutritional requirement of the poor and the vulnerable sections, the provision of cash transfers to supplement the income of the weaker sections, the provision of providing free LPG cylinders to around 8 crore BPL families under the PM Ujjwala scheme, etc. But the critics have also highlighted a number of drawbacks of the economic relief package. For example, if you look at the provision of free food grains, it is being provided through the public distribution system, and hence only those who possess a ration card would be eligible for the benefits of this scheme. Critics say that the eligibility requirements of this scheme makes it exclusive only to ration card holders, and it could end up excluding a number of migrant workers who may not possess the required documents. Critics say that the government of India should have followed the Kerala model, which provides for universal coverage of free food grains in order to ensure that no person goes hungry during the lockdown period. It has also been pointed out that the relief package does not talk about midday meal scheme or the establishment of community kitchen, which could have provided basic food and nutrition to young children, pregnant women, hungry migrant workers and truck drivers. Such benefits are already being provided by the state governments of Delhi and Kerala. So this is something that is missing from the economic relief package that has been announced by the government of India. The next criticism is that the cash transfers being provided to pensioners, disabled, widows and women is not substantial and the amount could have been increased. It has also been pointed out that the small minimal hike in Manrega wages may not benefit the rural families because panchayats have already stopped all Manrega related works due to the lockdown. So as a result, this promise of an additional income of 2000 rupees per worker may not be realized. Then if you look at the changes that has been made to the PM Kisan scheme, EPF contribution and support to the construction workers, the government has not allotted any new funds, but instead it has just redistributed the existing budgetary allocation itself. So on all these accounts, economists and social scientists say that the economic relief package announced by the centre is a good start, but it is not sufficient to meet the economic challenges that the country is facing. Of course, such a massive relief package requires enormous amount of resources, and the government is just trying to strike a balance between its available resources and the needs of the people. It is quite clear that the government has made a conscious attempt to stay within its budgetary limit and not breach its fiscal deficit targets. Due to this economic relief package, the centre will be breaching its fiscal deficit target only by a very small margin. In comparison, countries such as the United States, Germany and other European countries which have provided for a massive economic stimulus, they are going to breach their fiscal deficit targets by around 10 to 12%. It means that these governments have accommodated a fiscal expansion or budgetary expansion of around 10 to 12% in order to help their economies to cope with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. In total, the relief package accounts for just 0.75% of India's GDP, and it provides only a marginal relief to the poor and the weaker sections. But the editorial notes that the government has definitely made a good beginning, and it hopes that this is just phase 1 of the relief package, and it expects the government to come out with a second relief package a few weeks or few months down the line, which would provide incentives to medium and large scale industries as well. This is where India could draw a lesson from the massive economic packages that are being worked out by other countries such as the United States and Germany. For example, the US is in the process of working out a massive economic package of around $2 trillion. And these relief packages provide benefits not only to the vulnerable sections but also to the industries and the salaried class. Now let's take up an article from page number 8, which is related to the G20 virtual summit that was hosted by Saudi Arabia. The current chair of G20, that is Saudi Arabia, had called for this virtual video conference between the leaders of G20 in order to work out a coordinated strategy to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and help revive the global economy, which has taken a massive hit as a consequence of this pandemic. So at the end of the summit, the G20 countries have agreed to inject $5 trillion in order to revive the global economy. They have even agreed to contribute to the COVID-19 Solidarity Response Fund, which is led by the World Health Organization. The members of the G20 have also agreed to promote greater coordination and cooperation amongst the countries while dealing with pandemics. Because viruses which cause pandemics, they do not respect international borders and they do not differentiate between race, religion or ethnicity. So such global pandemics requires a coordinated response from countries around the world, and it requires countries to provide for timely and transparent information related to epidemiological and clinical data, to promote cooperation in research and development, to strengthen healthcare systems around the world, to provide for full and strict implementation of guidelines and regulations of the WHO. During this virtual summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has called upon the members to expand and redefine the conversation surrounding globalization. See, generally, any conversation between countries surrounding globalization deals with economic cooperation and financial cooperation. But the Indian Prime Minister has called upon the G20 members to expand and redefine these conversations to include social and humanitarian issues that are affecting the world as well, such as terrorism, climate change, and more importantly, pandemics. Prime Minister Modi has also called for expanding the mandate of WHO and for providing it with more funding. This indicates India's unhappiness with the manner in which WHO initially reacted to the COVID-19 outbreak in China. Now let's look at an article from page number 10, which says that big tech could emerge stronger from the COVID-19 crisis. See, the term big tech refers to the largest and the most dominant companies in the field of information technology. Usually, this term is used to represent the 5 most dominant IT companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, Amazon and Facebook. But in general, the term big tech also covers other technology-driven startups such as Zoom, Uber, Airbnb, Netflix, etc. So let us understand the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on these technology companies. See, the global spread of the pandemic has resulted in the imposition of shutdowns and lockdowns around the world, and this has pushed the global economy into a recession. But despite this, the big tech companies are thriving. This is because the shutdowns have created new opportunities for technology companies. As millions of people are being confined to their homes, their usage of internet and online applications has increased exponentially. So this definitely translates into good business for the technology companies. For example, millions of people are working from home. They rely upon video calling apps such as Skype, Zoom, etc. The primary source of entertainment and news for people locked up in homes comes from online applications such as Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, etc. The shutdown of malls, restaurants, schools, and the shortage of essential items has increased the dependency of people on e-commerce, online delivery, and online learning platforms. So this is how the shutdowns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has created newer opportunities for the big tech companies. But these opportunities also comes with its own set of challenges. Companies which are into hardware such as Apple, their production and manufacturing is taking a huge hit because of lockdowns in countries such as China, which is a key part of the supply chain. And in a globalized world, a global recession is bound to affect the valuation of these tech companies as well. And this is already being seen in the drastic decline of the stock value of these companies. Over the last few weeks, these tech companies have lost around $1 trillion in their market value. If the pandemic and the shutdowns have created newer opportunities for companies such as Netflix, Zoom, Facebook, Amazon, etc., it has also led to severe loss of business for tech companies such as Uber, Airbnb, etc. But overall, experts believe that big tech companies could actually emerge stronger from this pandemic crisis. Now let's take up the practice questions. The H-1B visa of the United States allows refugees to seek asylum, tourists to travel around the United States for 3 months. It allows US employers to temporarily employ foreign workers. It allows critical patients to seek quality health care in the United States. Amongst the given options, the correct answer is option C. This question has been asked because this article on page number 9 makes a reference to the H-1B visa of the United States, and it allows the US companies to employ foreign workers on a temporary basis. This visa is very important for Indian professionals who seek to work in the United States for a temporary period. Now let's take up the next practice question. The term Cartel of the Suns describes a Southeast Asian wildlife trafficking group, a Venezuela-based cocaine trafficking organization involved in narco-terrorism, a child trafficking organization based out of South Asia, an arms trafficking group based in Europe. Amongst the given statements, option B is the right answer. Now let's take up the next practice question. FARC or FARC is a guerrilla movement based out of which country? The correct answer is option C, Colombia. See, FARC stands for the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, and it is a guerrilla movement witnessed in this country. This organization has been designated as a terrorist organization by the United States. Now let's take up a map-based question. Which of the following statements are correct? Colombia is a landlocked country located in South America. Bogota, Cali, Medellin, Cartagena are major urban centers of Colombia. Amongst the given options, the first statement is incorrect. So option B is the right answer. Please look at this map. See, Colombia is not a landlocked country. It opens towards the Caribbean Sea and the North Pacific Ocean. And it shares borders with Panama, Venezuela, Brazil, Peru, and Ecuador. And Bogota is the capital of Colombia. Cali and Medellin are very popular because of the presence of drug trafficking cartels. And Cartagena is popular for hosting an environment-related summit in 1999, which led to the signing of the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety later in 2000 in Canada. These three questions related to Colombia, Venezuela, and narco-terrorism were asked because of this article on page number 10. According to this article, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has been indicted by the US Justice Department for heading a cocaine trafficking group known as the Cartel of the Suns, which is based out of Venezuela. According to the United States, this drug cartel based out of Venezuela has worked with the FARC rebels of Colombia to export hundreds of tons of narcotics into the United States. Now let's take up a practice question from the 2016 prelims paper. Consider the following pairs: Annex 1 countries Cartagena Protocol, Certified Emissions Reductions Nagoya Protocol, Clean Development Mechanism Kyoto Protocol. Which of the pairs are correctly matched? The correct answer is option C, 3 only. See, all the given terms, they are related to Kyoto Protocol, which is a part of the UN Climate Change Convention. Whereas Cartagena Protocol deals with biosafety and the Nagoya Protocol provides for the implementation of the goals of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Finally, let's take up a couple of mains practice questions. The first question: critically evaluate the COVID-19 lockdown relief package announced by the Government of India. The second question: the COVID-19 pandemic has deepened reliance on services offered by the big tech. Discuss how they could emerge stronger from this crisis. So kindly write an answer to these questions and post them in the comment section below. This concludes our discussion for the day. Thanks for watching.